Welcome, brave souls, to another journey into the darkness. Prepare yourselves for a tale that will send shivers down your spine and haunt your dreams forever. I have prepared my most macabre terror story that I can think of to share with you, so brace yourselves, for this story will make your blood run cold and your heart race with dread. The Doll Cemetery. In the heart of a forgotten village, hidden deep in the woods, there was a place few dare to speak of, the Doll Cemetery. It was said to be a burial ground not for people, but for the lost, abandoned, and cursed dolls of the world. The villagers whispered of it under their breath, warning children never to go near for fear of waking what lay within. Evelyn, a curious teenager with a thirst for adventure, had grown tired of the villagers' old stories. She didn't believe in cursed or haunted places. One autumn evening, as the sun sunk beneath the tree line, she and her friends decided to explore the infamous cemetery. The dare was simple: go inside, stay for an hour, and leave. Easy. With nothing but a flashlight and a thin layer of bravery, Evelyn led the way. The forest seemed to close in around them, the trees cracking like the sigh of a long forgotten souls. Eventually they reached the entrance, a rough iron gate, rusted and overgrown with twisted vines. Beyond it, the ground was littered with dolls, hundreds of them lying in the dirt, half buried or tangled in the roots of ancient trees. These weren't the cute, delicate dolls of childhood. Their faces were cracked, their eyes, those that reminded, stared blankly into nothingness. Some had limbs twisted at unnatural angles, others were missing heads or arms. The dolls seemed to be waiting, as if they had been discarded here for some dark reason. "This is creepy," whispered one of Evelyn's friends, but Evelyn pushed on. The cemetery stretched farther than any of them imagined, rows upon rows of dolls, each one looking more twisted than the last. At the center of the cemetery stood a large decaying oak tree. Beneath it, an enormous doll, unlike the others, sat on a throne of tangled roots. It was an old porcelain doll, dressed in a decaying gown that might have once been white. Its head was tilted to the side, a single glass eye gazing up at the sky, while its mouth was twisted into a faint, cracked smile. Evelyn felt an unnatural pull towards the doll. Something about it seemed alive. "Let's get out of here," one of her friends urged, but Evelyn shook her head. "Wait, look at this one. It's different," she said, stepping closer. As she reached out to touch the doll, the wind began to howl through the trees. A chill filled the air, and suddenly the forest was alive with the sounds of tiny footsteps. Dolls, previously still and lifeless, began to twitch and move, their limbs jerking in unnatural motions. One by one, the dolls rose from the ground. Their glassy eyes were now glimmering with malice. A whisper filled the air, a choir of voices that seemed to come from the dolls themselves. Growing louder, more intense, they began to close in on Evelyn and her friends, their movements slow and elaborate. The porcelain doll at the center began to crack, its head slowly turning to face Evelyn. Its mouth opened wider, the smile growing grotesque. It whispered in a voice that seemed to crawl beneath Evelyn's skin, "Stay with us." Evelyn's friends screamed, turning to flee, but the cemetery had changed. The path they came from was gone, swallowed by the sea of dolls now moving towards them. Evelyn stumbled backwards, her flashlight flickering in and out as shadows danced across the twisted faces surrounding her. She could hear her friends' panicked breaths, their footsteps pounding the earth as they desperately searched for an escape. The porcelain doll stood towering over Evelyn. Its smile widened until the cracks in its face deepened, pieces of porcelain falling away to reveal something far worse beneath, a skull-like visage with empty black sockets. It moved with a strange grace, as though time had no hold over it. The doll reached out, long fingers stretching towards Evelyn. She turned to run, her heart hammering in her chest. The whispers of the dolls grew louder, almost deafening, and the ground beneath her feet seemed to shift. Dolls clawed at her legs, their tiny hands grabbing and pulling at her clothes. She kicked them away, her breath coming in short gasps. Through the thick woods, she could hear the screams of her friends growing more distant, more frantic, until silence. Suddenly, she was alone. Evelyn's legs burned as she ran, the weight of dread sinking into her bones. She stumbled, falling to the ground just feet away from the iron gate. She glanced back only once, her breath catching in her throat. The porcelain doll stood at the edge of the cemetery, its hollow eyes fixed on her, unmoving, yet Evelyn could feel its promise. "We'll be waiting." The gate slammed shut behind her, the force almost knocking her off her feet. She looked back, but the cemetery was still again, as if nothing had happened. The dolls lay as they had before, broken, discarded, forgotten. But Evelyn knew the doll cemetery was alive, and it was waiting for its next visitor. And the next time, it wouldn't let her leave. Thank you for tuning into this eerie tale. Until next time, stay tuned for more spine-chilling stories. This was Sandra Pink.